Hey guys, before we start today, I just want to take a second and say, wow, I can't believe all the love and support. My subscriber count has gone from around 300 to over 6,000 in a single month. Your comments are so positive and sincere, and I'm seriously just touched that I'm inspiring so many people to make games. So thank you for encouraging me to keep going with all your kind words. Alright, on to the devlog. Last week we went over some of the level design practices I use in my game. Since the game is an open world game, level design is really important to keep the game feeling alive and exciting between points of interest. But what happens once you've seen a chunk of the world and have already discovered those secrets? Well, obviously you want to make that journey quicker by riding on some awesome creature you've just spent thousands of hard-earned gold on. So this episode's all about mounts and pets. I'll go over the original concept for them, their current stage in the game, and my future goals. So back in alpha, pets were a thing. Unfortunately, they weren't being saved with the save system. They caused a bit of a headache, so they were removed from the game before it was released to testers. I promised my Twitch viewers that they'd eventually make it back into the game, and I intend to keep that promise. So mounts have always been planned as well, and when I started the project over from scratch, the last thing I wanted to do was start rewriting all the old mechanics and features I'd already written twice at that point. So I basically started the new project with character movement systems, which were kind of necessary, and then went straight into mounts. So my original concept for mounts is basically unchanged from what I have in store for them today. I wanted the game to have a lot of things to work toward. Since crafting isn't a big focus and there's no building like you'd find in some games, like Minecraft, I needed to have a lot of cool stuff that the players could work toward. Mounts were an obvious choice early on, and my plan was to have different types of mounts sold at different locations around the world. So in the human town early on, you'd only find sheep. They'd be affordable and cute, but really slow. So you'd be able to buy a sheep and ride it between towns. When you took damage while riding a mount, it'd kick you off. Mounts can't take damage, and originally I built a whistle item that would summon your last ridden mount to you. But this became problematic. First of all, because some refactoring at some point seriously broke the whistle. No big deal, I can probably fix that. But mostly because what happens if you buy 2 mounts and leave one in the woods somewhere stuck in the mountains? And then forget about it and buy a second? How do you get the first mount back? This became a serious problem pretty fast. So lately, I've been working on redesigning how mounts are handled for the player. My plan now is to sell stables, which are more expensive than mounts, similar to riding training in a well-loved MMO we've all played. So you pay for the stable, and then if you have a stable, you can buy a mount. You can buy as many stables as you want, given there are enough in the world to buy. So when you show up at a stable, you'll be able to interact with an object somewhere in the stable to manage all your mounts, and you'll be able to set one to the stable, essentially summoning it for you. That way, if you lose a mount in the woods, no big deal. Just head back to town and resummon it at the stable you own. I'm pretty sure the solution is the best idea, and probably the most immersive for the game. So what about pets? I know I kind of just pushed them to the side, but I think pets are going to be pretty awesome. First of all, pets could go one of two ways, and right now nothing is really implemented, so it's still up in the air. My first idea is either to set up a pet shop in Alaran City. This could be a really fun way to visually see the pets that are randomly for sale each day. You head into the shop each morning and see what pets have spawned in, and hope that they're in your price range. I imagine that buying a pet will replace any already following you, and perhaps a pet bed in your house will allow you to summon any pet you previously purchased. Maybe you could even have multiple pets following you and just send them home by interacting with them using a dialogue menu. So I had another idea though, and this one's a hatching system. So you'd find super rare pet eggs in the world, hidden under bushes, maybe under dig spots, up in trees, maybe they could even be dropped by bosses. Once you had an egg, you could put it in a pet bed in your house and simply wait. Perhaps the egg could do some cool behind-the-scenes tracking, like how much damage you've been doing or how many steps you take before it hatches, or just be a random time based on the pet. Finally, when you notice the egg wiggling around, you can interact with it to get it to hatch and see what pet's inside. Now, this could result in things like cats hatching from eggs, which could be odd, but I wonder if the excitement of hunting for eggs and then waiting for them to hatch would be enough to overlook that fact. So I'll tell you what, you guys tell me what you'd prefer in the comments, or head over to my Discord and join in the chat to discuss it in real time with me. And while you're there, why don't you drop into the 30 Days of Game Dev channel, where you can challenge yourself to run through some basic game programming for 30 days in order to build the bare bones of your own RPG in the engine of your choice. If we can hit 10,000 subscribers here on the channel, I'll be doing a non-stop live stream where I do the entire 30 days. Then of course I'll recap the entire thing and make a video outlining each challenge and how I went about it. Since the beginning I knew that making mounts and pets were going to be a lot of work. Since I had to design, model, rig, weight, animate, and then texture every mount and pet in the game, each of these could take me up to a week or even longer depending on how complex they are. So a few months ago I was looking through some of the free asset packs that Unreal Engine gives out each month to its developers, and I came across some really cool animation sets for some wolves. That gave me a really interesting idea. I'm already using a lot of animations from Adobe Mixamo, and then making supplemental animations for spells and attacks by hand to save time. So why not utilize some of the awesome animations from the Unreal Marketplace, and especially the free assets that are just going to be sitting here collecting dust? So what I decided to do was export the animals from some of these packs and remove the mesh from them in Maya. Once it's just a bare skeleton, I model my own character around the skeleton, weight it, texture it, etc. And now I can use top-notch animations from these packs that would normally take me several days to make on my own. This method is going to save me a ton of time going forward and make creating new mounts, animals, pets, and even monsters so much easier. Bipedal animations are really complicated, and while I took several animation classes in college, bipedal was never something they taught. Not to mention that I really despise animation. It takes me way too long to get the desired effect, so if I can avoid it, I'm going to. Currently the game only has 2 mounts. One's a sheep. These have been in the game since the beginning, and quite frankly, I think everyone's a little bit sick of listening to them baa in the background while playtesting by now. It'll be really nice when I can get new mounts in to replace them eventually. I'm not even sure if sheep will be a mount in the final game yet. There's a chance that I might just make sheep roam around in a field, and maybe even make them rideable since they have very little movement speed anyway. It might be fun to make some quests where you have to herd the sheep, and maybe you can do that by riding them or even chasing them with another mount. The other mount in the game right now is, and let me warn you, this one's a bit of a spoiler, is a white wolf. So it's going to be an award for a difficult quest chain at some point in the game. I think making mounts attainable in other ways than just buying them will really add to the sense of discovery in the game. Collecting mounts and stables will be really fun for the players, and I think they're going to search far and wide for any they may have missed. Another issue I'm running into with mounts is the mount and dismount effects. So I'm thinking I want to actually animate getting on and off mounts, but that's kind of a lot of work, and a bit complicated since mounts are all going to be different shapes and sizes, so the animations will have to be varied if I go that route. Another issue is moving and rotating the player to the right location. I need to trigger the character to move to the mount location, which will differ for each mount, and then rotate and play the mount animation. This shouldn't be too complicated, and I recently set up something similar with storage trunks in the game. Currently, instead of this move to system, the player snaps onto the mount and the camera transitions between the players and the mount's camera. And when dismounting, the player is launched off the mount and to the side, which is a bit jarring since the camera then blends back to the player, but you're often facing in the wrong direction. This is definitely an area I need to polish if I decide to keep this method in the game. So a struggle I keep running into lately with the game in general is where to throw in the towel and say good enough, and where to keep polishing and perfecting things. As a solo dev, I'm beginning to realize just how in over my head I am and how overwhelming some of this development has actually become. I'm struggling currently with dozens of bugs, a performance issue that's eating away at my frames per second, and constant reminders that the game's still missing some core features like selling items, changing your clothes, and a simple options menu. I also need to redo the entire crafting system and a few other things that just aren't working well. So this week I realized that arrows and projectiles couldn't break boxes or deal damage to actors that weren't enemies, like the bells in the Bellkeeper puzzle I streamed last week. So when adding that functionality, I ended up breaking the entire projectile system and redoing it. It took me an entire day just to figure out how I traced the trajectory of the projectiles, and the projectile is working better than ever, but it dawned on me that I built the new projectile with only arrows in mind, meaning that fireballs and spells that explode like explosive arrows aren't going to work right now, and all projectiles are going to stick into surfaces, which at first I thought was an awesome addition to them for arrows, but now I have to set up a new boolean to determine if the projectile should stick into surfaces or if it should just be destroyed on collision. This might not seem that complicated, but it's only a fraction of what I'm actually dealing with. Anyway, if you're considering taking on a big project as a solo dev, just consider this rant as a forewarning. It's not easy, and there's a lot more than meets the eye in every game project. This is why the project has been restarted twice and why the release date keeps getting pushed back. But on the other side of things, I'm realizing lately that maybe I'm going about this whole early access thing wrong. I'm so afraid that players are going to leave negative reviews or they're not going to like the game that I'm trying to polish and finish every feature and add dozens of hours of content right away. When in reality, early access is just supposed to be a way for players to play the game early, really an early beta of the game before it's even ready to launch. That really should mean that anyone willing to pay for an early access key to the game should know what to expect and that they're willing to look past the bugs and incomplete zones and content to help test the game and give feedback. So with that in mind, I'm considering maybe cutting the scope a bit more and releasing an early access earlier than originally planned. I think it'll be good for me to see more people playing the game, because that's really what motivates me in the first place. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of my viewers, and especially all my Patreon supporters who are making this dream a reality for me. Without you guys, the game would suffer drastically from lack of music and animations. I do most everything by myself, but to speed up development to a reasonable pace, I pay for music and sound effects and even some animations from time to time. So thank you again for all that help. See you guys next week.